Well, isn't it a bright and beautiful day to welcome you back to Fear or Instinct, Book 1, Scrutiny, my storytime podcast. That's going to be the last time you get the whole title for a while, so you better remember it. Soon you will behold a tale from the perspective of three friends. Sybil, an up-and-coming scientist with everything to gain and nothing left to lose. Ophelia, a professional burnout. And last but never least, Hanah, a ranch owner in the throes of miserable chaos. These three will be forced to survive. Will they make it out, or will this world swallow them whole? Find out in Scrutiny, Chapter 1, Hanah. I'm your host, Zoe. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The dogs were barking, ceaseless, demanding. Hanah knew that they hated to be closed in, but this was not the barking of indignation. No, this was warning. Their cries nothing short of desperate. She was not ignoring them, although they may have believed so. No, she was waiting. She was perched against a fence, overlooking a young rice field, a clear view of the area it was coming from. She did not know what it was, just that it was better to hunt this by herself, with a gun and a knife. It had proved to be quick and slippery. The fence squeaked under her weight, in a hard breeze. The wind whipped through the grass in quick bursts, laying everything over with a rushing noise. At once, that was the only sound around. Everything was frozen, watching, waiting. Hanah did not dare respond. She kept staring as she was, listening, just like every other bird, and now even the dogs. She heard something break to her right, near the barn, but she didn't give in to the temptation to turn. It came every night this week, around the same time, during that misty moment when the sun sat low in the trees. All week it had come and managed to skitter off with her critters. First a chicken, then one of her cats. The next night he'd gotten bold and gone for 2 chickens, wounding one and making off with the other. She believed it was a fox until she'd found the print. Just one, in the mud at the flooded field's edge. Other than that, she'd not seen anything about it yet. The corner of Hanah's ear pulled. Her eye tugged at the fall of movement. Without thinking, she turned and fired her weapon. She got it. A rush of movement, gray off into the brush, leaving a trail of red behind it. Hanah didn't worry too much over how fast it ran. She was dressed for a trek. She moved on quiet feet, a quick and practiced habit. Once in the wetlands, her feet squelched down in the muck, though, making her movements much harder, masking her quarry's blood trail. Luckily, not the clumsily crushed foliage. Hanah hiked for a while, to a part of the wetlands she rarely visited. The marsh raised up and dried out, an island among the muck. She had to pause. It was getting dark. She'd noted her direction as she trekked, but it was always tricky navigating. She steadied herself low on the bank. In the near dark, she could see a worn path near where her trail led. Those strange prints tamping the soil down. Her eyes traced the path until it disappeared around the bend in the tall grass. She stepped up, eyeing the area with predatory care. She noted a tree among the vibrant reeds, ancient and snarled, standing up proudly in the midst of the wetlands. Her trail had vanished, unfortunately. Its blood seemed to have stopped, and something had slept in the reeds around the tree, packing them all down. She stepped lightly, trying to catch another certain sign of hers. She circled the ancient tree, spotting a print there, then another, until it brought her across a raised root, marks dove deep into the earth below. Hanah realized she'd stumbled upon the thing's den. She clicked on her flashlight as she pulled it off of her belt. Her gun had been resting comfortably on her arms, but she brought it to the ready. She turned the light along the area and spotted the near black gleam of iron-rich blood. Her eyes watched the blood come dripping down from up in the trees, and she got the idea to jerk her entire body backwards. A lucky instinct on her part as the thing came at her that very instant. Her gun was ready, and it was an easy habit to just fire as it hit the ground. Close range, it took the bullet to the chest. It turned to her, and its strange mouth shrieked, spewing blood across her legs. Hanah stepped back quickly. Horrified, she covered her eyes. In a moment, the noises stopped, and she brought herself to look again. She'd killed many animals, slaughtered her dinner from the time she was 8 years old, but this was no slaughter, no clean kill. Even now the thing wasn't recognizable to her. Gray skin splattered with deep red. It was small, emaciated, it seemed malformed. Not a rabbit, but it had the haunches and long, sharp ears, one of which was missing a sizable chunk midway. It had a sad face, big eyes, misshapen like pearls. Its mouth was hard to discern from the long, jagged spikes coming off of it. Yet among all of this, it was the hands that gave her pause. Fingers, long, textile, too long. She counted the knuckles once and then again. They came up 4 both times. Hanah felt displaced. Steadily, the noise ebbed back in around her, starting with a bird's whistle somewhere to her right. The smooth, clear tone made her think it was probably a titmouse. Her eyes went to find it. She hadn't seen so many of them this year. Its sound was steadily drowned out by the other creatures, relaxing back into their conversations. She went to the animal's side and nudged it with her foot. It wasn't faking. At least, she didn't think so. Its body was totally limp and its eyes were open, staring to one side. She half expected it to suddenly burst back to life. Her instinct was to leave the thing there, to never touch it. Yet another part of her, one more informed, knew that this thing could not be left to decay here. It was clearly some horrific abomination from Zyko's genetic meddling. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Everyone knows they are bad news. Hanah had done enough damage wounding it and letting it bleed everywhere. She had a garbage bag at her side, which she shook out and stooped down. She flexed her hands and reluctantly picked it up by what she imagined was a scruff. It was surprisingly lightweight despite its size, its body all bone except a fat stomach. She worried that it might have a parasite, or be a parasite. That's why it ate so much. It had come from seemingly nowhere. She tucked the thing back into her bag and tied it to her belt. Hanah moved her flashlight around, looking for any indication that there might be something else here. She knelt down near the raised root, the light reflected off of white bone. The critter had gnawed the flesh clean off. She couldn't find any of the bird bones in particular, but she immediately recognized a cat's skull when she saw one. Her heart shattered when she saw it. Hamster was this one's name, and she was fond of all of her cats, even the barn ones. Somehow, she thought, maybe he'd survived. But clearly, something in her said, pick it up. She did not want to. The idea was actually very repulsive. She wondered why she'd ever had such a thought, but even as she was wondering, her hand went out of its own accord and snatched up the skull. She tried not to recoil at the touch. Cold, rigid, nothing like the soft being she loved. She chastised herself. It was only death. That of a friend, lost far too soon. Hanah felt a wave of righteous loathing as she tucked the little skull into her breast pocket. No hate for the starving thing she'd killed, but rather Zyko, a capitalistic institute with no human morals to speak of. Her malaise turned against herself, for she was the only one to blame. She never should have signed that contract giving Zyko access to this property. Giving any corporation access to a delicate ecosystem was a fucking mistake. Duh! Of all the people Grandma could have left this farm to, did it have to be her? Grandma's own daughter, Lydia, Hanah's mother, was still alive, flourishing at the time of Grandma Betty's passing. Hanah felt a rising tide of betrayal come up in her. She could not fight it back down out here, in the privacy of the swamp. How could Betty do this to her? She must have known what kind of rift that would put between mother and daughter. It's not as though Hanah had been expecting it. She was in no way the eldest heir, the most realistic grandchild, the strongest of the litter, or anything special. She was a fine worker, smart enough to go to college, and also to know that she didn't want to. Yeah, she wanted the farm, sure, but not more than her mom, brothers, or sister. Hanah felt bitterness, anger directed at her late grandmother. Inheritance had been the beginning of the fracture, the first of many bitter arguments and stubborn nights that had led to worse things. Hanah felt choked up. She tried and tried to push it back. That desperation, the burning, one tight sob raked its way out of her chest, and that was it. She absolutely could not hold it together anymore. The crickets closed in, signaling that night was truly upon them. Frogs began their endless cries, and Hanah wept. What madness had taken her life in these past few years? What absolute horrors! Her existence had been something of a never-ending death parade. First her grandma, then Dad and Sean. But really, if she was thinking about it, first she had to think about Jamie, and she hated that. He died so long ago now that she could only picture his smile. His brotherly face had faded from her eyes. She laughed, choked on it, and had to start coughing through her tears. She cleared her throat, spat out a loogie, and wiped her face with her clean hand. With a quick sigh, she stood up and trudged back home. There was no use whimpering about the past, and she needed to get home. It was time for bed. It was almost 10 p.m. Hanah got herself home, using a flashlight to guide her path. She could see the homestead, the bright floodlights she'd left on for this very purpose. The animals were making quite the ruckus. They could hear her coming, but the wind was blowing into her face, so they had no idea it was her. She called out to them in her usual tone, telling them, "Hey, it's all fine now." She had taken care of the threat. She opened up the doors and the dogs came bounding out, bursting to sniff the information left by the thing at her side. Crom, the eldest of her pack, deftly padded to her side, pausing to sniff at her hand and then the bag. Immediately, he sat down and whined. He sensed the same thing she did. This thing did not belong here. "I know, Crom. I know." She gave him a scratch with a clean hand and turned to be on her way. She worried over her flock, her pack. She trusted the dogs to defend the homestead, of course, but too much trouble was too much. Hanah marched towards her house. She wanted a better look at this monstrosity. She went round to the concrete driveway. Here she was in shadow. The wind fell away. She opened the garage up. The inside was full with her truck, and then wedged next to that was her mom's car with the rest of the space taken up by the many things one might need when running a homestead. Most of it was covered in dust. She inched between the two vehicles and turned the outer garage lights on. It bathed the concrete in a green-yellow glow. She laid out a tarp and threw down a plastic bag. She had just enough time to cut the bag open before a series of howling barks stayed her hand. She looked up. A pair of worker bees, two silent figures dressed head to toe in black Tyvek, save for the yellow Z on their backs, materialized from the other side of the house. "Hell," she grumbled. She'd not grown used to this yet. It had only been a few months since she'd signed the contract. Few workers had come to do anything at all, at least not while Hanah was nearby. She had been told to expect worker bees, decked out in a particular garb, to not bother them, as they wouldn't respond to her anyway, so they were instantly recognizable to her. With them came a sloppily dressed man. He was probably twice Hanah's size and sported a wide belly that pushed the constraints of his suspenders. She did not recognize him. "Well, hello there, Hanah." The man offered her an almost sincere smile. The light glinted back from his eyes, made her sense deceit. "Oh, I'd return the greeting, if I knew who you were," Hanah answered, regarding the stranger with a cool gaze. His grin only broadened. An Apocalypse Keepers production. Oh, I'm evil. I'm leaving with you. Such a cliffhanger. Thank you, though, for, tuning in and all that. Tune in next week and you might find out. Nah, I'm lying to you. It's not going to be Hanah next week.
you're going to be introduced to Ophelia. And then we'll be back to Hanah. That's it. All right? You enjoy your day. I know it's better now because, you got to listen to my podcast. And because it was better, because of me, you really ought to go on over to my Patreon and show your support, your gratitude, just because I made your day better. That's all. One hand washing the other, etc., etc.